What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the BFF show. I'm Brendan.
I'm Franco.
I don't know which way to go in pointing because are we split screen when you do
Yeah,
this?
I have to decide which way. I've changed it every single time. We'll go this way. All right, now we're pointing at each other. That's good.
Okay. So anyway, let's get into it's the summer movie season has started. Before we recorded, we realized collectively all these movies we thought hadn't come out yet actually did come out. And some of them have been really terrible. We ran through Transformers that did not do well at all. And we were looking at things like the Emoji Movie, which actually I think came out, or has it come out?
July 28th is the Emoji Movie.
Yeah. So this has to be peak narcissism, right? This is just straight up narcissistic, pessimistic attitude that you take something on your phone that is further diluting our ability as humans to communicate. Because now we've taken away words and we just do symbols because we're like, I struggle to tell you how I feel, but these preloaded corporate pictures of different faces are the best way for me to communicate with you. And then someone in Hollywood went, we can make a movie out of this. So that made me so sad. At first I thought it was a parody, and then I realized, nope, this is actually happening.
You know who can blame for this? The Angry Birds movie, which shouldn't have been successful. Yes. It was, and spawned a TV show and a pajama line and everything else. So yeah, we're here now. I actually find emojis really annoying. The other day, I forget which Utah Jazz player sent out an emoji sentence telling Gordon Hayward to say. And I don't know if Gordon Hayward's better at emojis, but all I got was like palm tree, saxophone, championship. But there were like 9 different emojis. I'm sure it made a sentence, but the message was lost on me. But we digress. All right, so let's go. Where are we going next? Guide us.
We're going to go to Valerian. Valerian, stars Cara Devine.
Mm-hmm.
And he looks very familiar, but he's one of those actors.
Dehane, I believe his name is.
Yeah, that's right. You're right. Yeah, and it's called. It's based off of a sci-fi book.
It is. It's
is it a graphic novel? It's a graphic novel.
It's a graphic novel. They're going for the Sin City type of deal. We're going to build off of it. And I apologize. It's Dane DeHaan. I'm sorry, Dane. If you're watching the show, which we know you are, your name is not Darren.
Shout out.
Sorry.
Shout out to our friend of Brendan and Franco and Friends.
Yeah.
Dane DeHaan.
All right. Sorry, Dane. All right, go ahead. So yeah, based on graphic novel, they're kind of going the Sin City route where they're going to adapt the first one and hopefully turn it into a series. I think it's gonna fail miserably. Like it's gonna be bad.
Yeah, it's directed by the same guy who did The Fifth Element, and I know that only because the trailer mentions that about 9 times, just to kind of give you some sort of sense of credibility of what this thing is. It looks very loud, both visually and audibly. It looks like they are trying to harness any preteen vibe of sci-fi / Hunger Games / what was that vampire movie? Twilight. It just feels like they.
I can't believe you just forgot the name of Twilight. Again, talking about how old you are. Twilight.
I try to push it out of my head.
All right.
I don't, and it's just I'm deleting old files in my memory. I don't have time to store that. So it feels like it's taking all those elements and trying to just throw them up against the wall. And this is one of those movies where when it fails, you'll read stories about how they knew it was going to fail, but they had planned 6 different sequels after it.
Yeah, you know what it feels like? The Wachowski siblings released that sci-fi movie that turns Channing Tatum into a dog-like animal and had Mila Kunis, who is probably the worst star ever for any franchise, and they're going to make a franchise out of it.
Friend of the show, Mila Kunis.
I don't like Mila Kunis. She's not a friend of the show. Sorry, Mila. One day you'll earn our good graces, but when you're appearing on The Bachelor or Bachelorette with Ashton Kutcher, you're not a friend of the show. But yeah, so I think it's gonna be that. Like, where it has a lot of fanfare, and in of itself, it probably won't be a bad movie, but they've already wasted so much goodwill that it's gonna struggle and bomb out.
So we've talked about a bunch of movies that were that were bad, that we just think are going to be bad. Or do you have any movies that you're looking forward to this summer?
I am really, really excited about Spider-Man Homecoming. I mean, remember how good the first 2 Spider-Man movies were back in the day? Number 2, I think, was considered, it kind of really ushered in the era of the serious superhero movie, where it was literally taken seriously by critics. It got applauded. It had award nominations. I mean, that's what we could see again. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm not in love with the tie-in with Robert Downey Jr. and everybody loves that idea, but he's kind of a ham, and I hope they keep him relegated to a few scenes and not make it like a buddy cop movie.
Yeah, I think that's the only. I agree with you. I mean, I love Robert Downey Jr. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, I think this movie doesn't need it, and I hope it's not where he's in it for like. If he's in it for more than 20% of the film, that's too much. Like, I think he needs to be like 10 to 20% to kind of at least establish maybe something. And I know that you're establishing the connective tissue between the main Marvel Universe movie world and Spider-Man, but I feel like you don't need it. So if it's more and it's excessive, then it's going to be disappointing.
I mean, it kind of feels like they're going to use it as a plot point. He gets this like high-tech suit. Tony gets this pointed at him and pulls it away. Then he earns it back. If he's used purely as a transition for that plot point, fine. But if like Iron Man saving the day in the end, you've kind of taken the juice out of it. So we'll have to see.
We'll have to see how that goes. So I think for me, I really just want to see Baby Driver. It came out this weekend.
Oh, I'm so pumped for that movie.
It looks awesome.
It looks so good.
Edgar Wright. It looks really awesome, and it's the first. And I think, and according to the box office, it did really well. I think this morning, Hollywood Reporter had it at 30 million, which is really good for that movie. Despicable Me 3 sadly beat it out for number 1, but that's because families need somewhere to go in the heat. Beating out overall, though, The House, starring Will Ferrell, that did about 9 million and was hugely disappointing to the point where Sony, I forget which, but some executive said, obviously, there's not a market for these films, and I disagree with that. That disappointed me. There's a market for good comedy. There's not a market for slapstick, sanitized, corporate-style comedy. So you can't just put an R rating on it and say a few F words and think that's going to be enough to get an audience. I think people are smarter and they're more sophisticated. They want something that's legitimately funny. A good example of the last one that I saw that was sort of stupid and it didn't do great, but it did well enough that they're doing a sequel was Let's Be Cops, and it was so stupid. But it was Marlon Wayans Jr. and it was
the guy from New Girl.
The guy from New Girl.
Yeah. He doesn't have a name.
Funny.
Nick Miller is the name of the character.
Nick Miller.
Yeah.
It was funny. And it was stupid, but it didn't have lofty expectations. It was an R-rated film, and it made good use of it, and it's getting a sequel because it was a funny film. And I just feel like you can't just mimic that success with R-rated films, but you got to look back to things like Caddyshack, to things like even any of the older Bill Murray, like Stripes is still funny to me.
Yeah,
like that works because it was well written. I think so. I don't think it's that people don't want to see comedies anymore. They just want to see well written comedies, and you can't just have someone be very loud and have that make up for poor writing.
No, I agree with you. I think the problem with the Will Ferrell House idea is that it's trying to capture other movies like it. Like it's Step Brothers light. Like they're trying to stay within that same lane. They're trying to Let's Be Cop worked because it wasn't a reproduction of something else. Whereas The House, it feels like they're grabbing the Neighbors vibe and mixing it with Step Brothers and mixing it with The Hangover. That's not going to work because it's tired. And the box office already suffers because of things like Netflix and pirating and everything else. But yeah, I don't know. Again, it's not surprising that it failed, and it wasn't on my list to go see, so no harm to me.
And then let's look at one bright spot before we look at some trailers that we saw. Wonder Woman is the highest grossing DC Universe film that they've done out of the 2. Yeah. or 3, excuse me. Suicide Squad, Man of Steel, and Batman vs. Superman. I loved it. You saw it already, correct?
Yeah, it's quite good. They did a really good job capturing the character and not making her a damsel in distress, which is something I was kind of worried about.
Me too. I was worried it was going to turn that way, and it didn't. It was a really fun movie. It was lighter than the last 3, which I thought was a good move on their part, but still serious enough that I didn't think I was watching a comedy by any means. But I really enjoyed it, and my hope, and maybe we're not going to see it in Justice League, although Joss is currently finishing it up. So we talked about that in one of the previous shows. But do you think this kind of finally resets and they pivot away from where they were going, or is this merely just a blip because it happened to be a movie that initially they weren't as invested in?
I want to say it's a pivot point.
Yeah.
I mean, I think having Joss Whedon take over that movie is going to help pivot that anyway. That's going to be a big plus. But I think it's more a blip. I think DC didn't have as much invested. And we're still talking the day and age where they didn't want to release Young Justice toys because there was too many female characters. They didn't think it was going to sell. That's the DC Warner we're talking about, and that was 2 years ago. So I'm sure it was that they didn't have as much invested in the film. And they kind of already introduced her in Batman vs. Superman, so it really didn't matter if it failed because the character's already living. And so that free reign they gave the director really helped a lot. And hopefully they stick with it, but I'm not sure.
I'm actually going to punish myself later tonight and try to rewatch Batman vs. Superman. I haven't touched it since I saw it in theater.
Watch the extended cut. It makes sense of some of the more inane things. Just make sure you have a beer or something.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, take a beer with you. Have a beer when you watch it. Or 6.
It's required.
It's 3 hours long, so you could probably get 6 beers in and be fine.
Well, I'll probably have to be skipping around in some parts. But I hope that it means that we're going to get better success in terms of the movies overall, just in better quality. But I agree with you. I don't know. We'll have to find out. But let's talk about... We had this discussion already about a certain trailer that dropped. So Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, who we hold near and dear to our hearts,
friend of the show,
and isn't friend of the show, big time friend of the show.
Yeah.
He.
Oh, I wonder. You know what we're gonna do before you start? We actually have a picture of you and Dwayne in Las Vegas. Partying. I'll have to make sure I put that in the final goodbye part of this, so you guys can see Brendan and Dwayne together. Yeah.
And my other good dear friend of the show, Sasha Banks.
I mean, sure, but she's no Dwayne.
Friend of the show.
All right, friend of the show.
show.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, I cut you off. I was just so excited about that picture.
No, it's okay. It was a great pick. So he had announced a year ago, "Hey, I'm doing Jumanji," and everyone was like, "Cool, a sequel to Jumanji that no one really wanted or needed," because Jumanji itself, standalone, excellent film. Yep. Robin Williams. Very near and dear to people's hearts, speaking of, and treasured memory for a lot of folks. And everyone was like, all right, sure. And then pictures started to come out from the set with Kevin Hart, Jack Black. And they were, the way that, and I'm blanking on the woman who's in the film, but the way she was dressed was over-sexualized, and that got some criticism.
She's actually in Guardians of the Galaxy. She's the sister.
Okay.
The villainous sister. We're not winning with names right now, but yeah.
It's okay. And you're looking at it like, all right, well, this doesn't look... I don't see a board game. I don't see a family. I don't see anything that is associated with the first one. So then, before the trailer dropped, there's some notes about it's based off of a video game, Jumanji. And you're like, okay, all right. And then the trailer dropped. And my feeling was that this movie doesn't need to be called Jumanji. This is just kind of using that name for the recognition that the first one gave it and lends itself to. Because the plot is essentially this. There are 4 kids that are in detention.
The Breakfast Club.
They get assigned... It's the Breakfast Club.
Yeah, basically the Breakfast
Club.
They
get assigned to clean up the basement or something. And they discover this old video game system with Jumanji. They plug it in, and then they have to pick their avatars. And then they get sucked into the video game. So essentially, all The Rock, Kevin Hart, they're playing high school kids. So The Rock is actually playing a white, nerdy kid. And
it looks kind of like you. Young Brendan, essentially.
Yeah, he kind of does.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Fair point. And the Jack Black character is this very privileged white girl.
Vapid. That's the word I would use.
Vapid.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the star athlete is the short Kevin Hart. And then one of the other, I think a male character is the female.
No.
Or is it the other girl?
It's the mousy, quiet female girl is now suddenly...
Of course, she becomes
the very
hot
buxom,
version.
Very beat up kind of woman. I was going to say bad A, but I decided not to use that word because I don't know what we can't say. So we'll go beat up.
We'll go with that.
Yeah.
So the trailer drops, and I watched the whole thing, and I didn't like it, and I didn't like it because it's called Jumanji. I think if it was called, Welcome to the Jungle, which is the tagline, perhaps that might have made me a softer landing. I would be like, oh, this is an interesting version. I'm like, okay, the idea is interesting, but because you have the Jumanji idea mixed with this, it feels like there's a conflict in my head where it's just like I can't get over that they felt like they had to name this thing Jumanji, even though it supposedly plays homage to it. And I think you mentioned something to me about one of the other characters that pops up in the trailer, correct?
Yeah, so basically they're doing the Robin Williams, like, kid stuck in the game thing with the Zac Efron, or one of the Jonas brothers, Efron, they all look the same. One of the Jonas brothers is like the Robin Williams, I've been stuck in the game for 10 years character that comes back and helps them, which is an insult to Robin Williams, but we'll see how they do.
Yeah. So is it supposed to be Robin Williams' character?
No, but it's the same.
Is it somebody else?
Same vein of the idea. Like, the kid got stuck before, couldn't find a way out, and now he has to get out. Again, this is all speculation. No spoiler alert because we didn't make the movie, so we have no idea. But yeah, so that's kind of like their tie-in. That's they're mimicking. That's their homage, as you say. Homage.
So what are your thoughts on it?
First off, there was a sequel to Jumanji. It was called Zathura, which everybody seems to forget, with the really annoying guy from Ashton Kutcher's Punk. He married Kristen Bell. Dak Shepard. Dak Shepard was the character, and they had a space video game that takes their house into space. So there already was a sequel. First problem. Second problem is, I feel like they had a good Jumanji 2 script, but they also had this Welcome to the Jungle script, or Getting Psyched in a Video Game script, and they said, you know what, these are similar enough, we have The Rock, let's just combine them into one movie. And that's kind of how we got where we're at. But I think it's going to be fine. I think it's going to be a perfectly, good, forget where you're at, maybe, have some popcorn, be mindless fun, kind of like when they did Journey to the Center of the Earth. That was not fantastic, but it was mindless, it was enjoyable. I think we're going to hit that, but I do think you're right. By putting Jumanji on it, they kind of set an expectation that may not be able to meet.
I mean, and even besides that, I think it'll be fine. I think that I still like The Rock. I haven't seen Baywatch yet. That was another summer movie that came and went that didn't really do too well.
Yeah.
But I made that comparison to you earlier, yesterday or Friday. I was like, you know what? All right, yeah, Baywatch, not a great movie, but Baywatch stuck to the source code of the DNA. It was set on a beach, and to me, this is like, and I think I said this online, I was like, this is like if The Rock was transported into space, and he was punching an alien, and then a beach ball rolled by, and then it's flashed on the screen, Baywatch. I'd be like, oh, wait a minute, what? Why is this called Baywatch? Because of the beach ball. This is how I feel about it with Jumanji. Why is this called Jumanji? Because there's a game in it?
It's in the jungle.
Because if you take that out, you've got a whole different movie. It doesn't make any sense compared to what the original Jumanji was about. So The Rock even kind of made light of this, where he went on Instagram and he basically said, hey, the trailer dropped. I've loved reading all your comments. I've also read a lot of your comments about why is this movie a sequel or what this is about. He basically said, trust me, it'll make sense when it comes out. I don't know if that's a great marketing line, or like, hey, just go see it. It'll make sense when you see it because you've already paid the money. But
if it was
I hope it works out.
Anyone else but The Rock, it would be really bad marketing. But he has enough goodwill right now that I think he's fine. And I do think the Baywatch movie will end up being one of those cult classics that we end up coming back to. I think it'll do well in DVD sales, in downloads. I guess is what they measure it now. I think it'll be fine.
I guess I don't know.
Yeah, I think the danger there is I think Zac Efron sunk Baywatch, and I feel like one of the Jonas brothers might sink Jumanji. That's my concern. But
it's a weird cast pull. Put Joe Jonas in there. Okay, sure.
Is it Joe Jonas?
I don't know.
All right.
It doesn't.
I know there's
matter.
Nick. There's Nick Jonas. There's Joe Jonas. Sebastian Jonas. We'll just start making names.
Sal Jonas.
Friend of the show, Sal Jonas will be in another movie.
Friend of the show. Yeah. None of the other. We're not friends with the other Jonas brothers. But Sal Jonas, what's up?
Yeah.
So we'll have to wait and see. So and I guess we'll just have to figure it out and trust in Dwayne.
Yeah, I think the reality is that every movie that Dwayne and Kevin Hart have done together has done well in the box office, and they're kind of banking on that relationship carrying it. And right now, Kevin Hart is kind of untouchable. Even though those movies are sometimes terrible, they do well. So maybe it'll be a mix of both. A little Fast and the Furious, Kevin Hardy, Central Intelligence mix. And it depends when they release
Fun
it.
movie.
I don't have an actual release date. So hopefully they release it in a dead weekend so they can pick up the first spot.
I think this is a Christmas thing.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, as long as they beat out Star Wars, we'll be fine. Speaking
It's
of
Thanksgiving or Christmas.
let's transition to Star Wars. Have you read about this? The Han Solo movie fired both of its directors, and they also hired an acting coach in the middle of filming for the lead actor.
Yeah.
A couple.
So
big
yeah, to
red
recap.
flags. Go ahead.
Yeah. The co-directors were fired. Phil Lord and I forget the other actor. We're great with names here.
Yeah.
And they brought in Ron Howard to finish the film.
Which is a terrifying
And I read the Hollywood Reporter article about it. And supposedly filming was so bad that the executive producer style was everything has to be done by the script. The co-director's style, based off their films like The Lego Movie and 21 Jump Street with Jonah Hill, was, the script is there, but let's improvise it. So they would spend hours changing up lines and letting the actors change it without any real clear direction. And the word got out to the higher ups at Disney, like, hey, these guys are not really sticking to the script. And that was very upsetting to Disney, who has this weird kind of company line of where they want creative directors, and they're doing this with Marvel. Edgar Wright, speaking of Baby Driver, and his disastrous time on Ant-Man. Not of his own doing, but of Marvel's doing.
I mean, I think
it seems,
despite those disastrous time, Edgar Wright made that movie better. Like, his fingerprints were all over that, and that's why it was so successful. But neither here nor there.
Neither here nor there. But it's like these companies want to be cool and bring in hot new directors, like Josh Trank prior to Fantastic Four.
Hot no longer, but yes.
No longer. He was on a Star Wars film too. He was on Rogue One, and they pulled him immediately when Fantastic Four came in. So it's like they want to be hip and cool and say, look, we're giving the franchise new life with these new creative visionaries. And then when they start being creative, for better or worse, they go, uh-oh, this is not good. And then they yank them and bring in sort of Hollywood established guys that are just going to do it by the old school way of just stick to the script, and there's no creativity here. And it might still be creative filming, but in terms of creativity input from the director. So, and you're right, and the acting coach was brought in because they were like not getting what they wanted out of Han Solo. There's even reports that the Han Solo tone was also not being curated appropriately, and the curated tone they wanted from Disney was what Harrison Ford basically was, where it's, for all intents and purposes, they're trying to make more of a jokey Han Solo, irreverent Han Solo, not really the cool Han Solo that we're used to. But I don't know. I think Ron Howard, supposedly when he arrived, when the announcement was made, that the entire set erupted in cheers because they were just tired of dealing with the co-directors who didn't make a decision. That was also a knock against them, that they weren't decisive. Yeah. So, I think we have to figure out, and when we watch the film, if we can figure out where the touch-ups were. But according to reports, Ron Howard is going to spend the next week or so just looking at all the footage and seeing what he can do with it.
I mean, you have a great cast, and Donald Glover's on that, and when he's one of those gifted actors that when he goes on a tangent, it's probably better than the script. So that might have been your problem. Like, a lot of talent like that, let's just hope they don't lose his charm in the process of making this movie. But Ron Howard's not a bad director. We'll see what happens. It's not a good sign. We'll just leave it at that. Not a good sign for young Han Solo.
Do you think long run with these films and what they want to go? Like, I believe that the plan is going to be where they have another 8 years or so of Star Wars films once a year, and on and off. And I mean, they were very successful with Rogue One, which was a lot of fun. Yep. Do you think that this is a misstep to try and do a young fill-in-the-blank character?
Oh, yeah.
Or should they just do what, basically, in a way, what they're doing is, what they should do is take the novel approach, I mean literal novel approach, of taking these stories set in various times and then creating that film, because there's stories to be told immediately after the original trilogy ends, which they're doing now, and also in between. And I mean, I would kill for a Shadows of the Empire movie, because I love Shadows of the Empire. Yep. Dax Shepard?
Yeah, that's the character from Shadows of the Empire.
No, it's not. Dax Shepard's the actor.
Oh,
Dax Rendar.
Dax Rendar. I'm sorry. Let's get picky about our like mid-90s Star Wars characters. You giant nerd.
I'm gonna get picky because you said Dax Shepard.
All right. I feel like this is gonna be. Remember when X-Men tried to do this? X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Yeah.
And it bombed miserably, and they're gonna do X-Men Origins Magneto and all this other stuff. This is Star Wars X-Men Origin Wolverine. It's gonna come out. It's gonna do okay in the box office, but it's gonna flounder, and they're gonna be like, all right, let's rethink this model, and then we probably won't see another young movie again.
Probably not. I just hope that ultimately it just doesn't become a rehash, because it does kind of. I'm already kind of tired of the main plot of Star Wars being there's a giant Death Star-like vehicle and we need to stop it. Like, they all seem to be revolving around, oh, here comes another Death Star. That's what happened in Force Awakens. That's what happened. Rogue One was literally about the Death Star again. I'm kind of tired of it. And the novels really did a good job of branching out. The Admiral Thrawn was another character that I would love to see properly done in the universe. I think should be done. I think it's an interesting enough character. The quick background, we had other stuff to talk about, but I want to stick on Star Wars. That he was basically sent to the far reaches of the universe because he was an alien commander, and that was kind of taboo, but the Emperor loved him. And that he actually comes back once he finds out that the Emperor and Darth Vader are dead, and then is just trying to destroy the Rebel Alliance. And then he has a Sun Crusher vehicle, again, another Death Star.
Yeah.
Basically a smaller version that instead of trying to recreate the destruction of a planet, they just have a little thing that shoots out a missile that blows up suns and then effectively wipes out universes.
Yep.
That would be awesome. I'm all for it. So I hope that they do something like that. I don't know, but I don't think they will. I think they said the novels they just dismissed all of them.
They did. I think they'll borrow from it. I think the most recent Star Wars had to do the Death Star-like vehicle because it needed to reset the trilogy. Like, after the horrible prequels, like The Force Awakens had the job of, let's return to the spirit of the original trilogy. I think that's why we had the Star Killer. Is that what it's called? Whatever the moody, angsty teenager was driving around the universe trying to kill things with. Hopefully we get away from that in the next movie. I think we will. And we'll see what happens. I'd love to see...
All right, well, it's about that time.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, it's about that time.
To wrap it up.
All right, we have 30 seconds. I'd love to see a return to the whole, like, Sith idea. Like, if I remember correctly, the video game, Knights of the Republic, they had this whole side quest. Like, it was an entire Sith Academy. It'd be interesting to see that more fleshed out as opposed to this whole... Oh, Darth Maul shows up. Oh, he's dead. Darth Sidious shows up. Oh, he's dead.
And he's dead.
Well, I'd like to see more background behind that idea too. But I'm sorry, we only have 1 minute, so let's say our final thoughts.
So, what did you learn today, Franco?
I learned that you have an issue with our good friend Dwayne, and you're not going to support his film. So we'll have to have that conversation off the air.
What I learned is that I learned that Hollywood is just going to completely destroy our childhoods and just mine anything and put it. And so I'm looking forward to Star Fox, the movie, Hungry Hungry Hippos, the movie. It's going to be great. It's going to be great.
Yeah. Well, on that very sad note, I think it's time to say goodbye.
I'm Brendan.
I'm Franco.
See you next time.
Peace.